Hey guys, welcome to this video. In this video, I'm going to be teaching you how to save data for a user in App Lab. To start off, we're going to look at this app I made here, where every time you click the button, the number goes up. See, the issue with that is that every time you reset, it goes away, and all your hard work is gone. So to fix that, we're going to go over here to the Data tab and make a table. So in this little text box, we're going to type in user data table. And you can name this whatever you want, but I'm going to name it user data table. You click add, and here you're met with a column of ID, column 1, and actions. We're not going to worry about this or this. We're just going to worry about the data that we need. So we're going to type in here clicks, so we can keep track of the clicks here in the table. And then here we're going to need user ID, which is incredibly important because we need to know which person we're giving this data to. So we're going to go over here to the code, and over here is of course the simple code that I made to just make this. But now we're going to add var current user equals curly brackets, or object, just an empty object. That's pretty much what it is. And then we're going to do current user dot user ID, which is the thing we just made here in the table. And we're going to make that equal to get user ID, which is basically this function right here. Get user ID. It gets a unique identifier for the current user of this app. And it's just this random long string, basically. And the next thing is we're going to do current user dot clicks equals 0. So when the program starts off, it always is at 0. All right. Also, what's this? Oh, miss. Oh, I put parentheses there. All right, my bad. Just get rid of those. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to want to read the records. So we're going to want to go through every single person or supposed person in this table. And if the user ID matches the person that's playing this right now, then we're going to want to give them their clicks. And if they're not in the table, then we're going to add them to the table. So to be able to read this table, we're going to need to go over here to read records. Okay. And basically this is an automatic for loop that loops through all the records. So here in read records, we're going to type the string user data table, which is the exact same name as the table that we just made. And make sure it's spelled correctly, because strings can be finicky and it can cause all sorts of errors just because you misspelled something. So make sure you spelled it correctly. So the next thing you're going to want to do is we're going to keep this for loop, but we're going to get rid of this console log. And I'm going to go to text. You can go to you can go to block mode if you want and stay there, but I'm going to sit here. And we're not going to type anything in this for loop yet. But what we are going to type, or what we are going to make, is a function. And this function is going to be called check user. And if you're not sure what a function is, I recommend looking up tutorials because it can be really confusing if you do not know. But for anyone who does know, carry on. So in these parameters, we're going to feed it records and iterate. So we're going to feed it this here, and we're going to feed the I in this. So basically we're going to put check user in here, which we might as well actually. Check user, records, and iterate. So every time this for loop pops off, goes off, it's gonna do this function. So in this function, we're gonna type if records iterate dot user ID is equal to the person who's playing, the user ID of this machine, then current user equals records iterate. And then let's make another function down here called get user data. And what this function is going to do is very simple. All right. It's just going to go and get the clicks of the user and just display them. So current user dot clicks. And then let's do a set text here. Set text, label clicks. Clicks. And there you go. And that's all the function. That's all the function needs to do. And then we're going to call the function up here. Oops. All right. So now that we got this, so basically what this does, so if the record here are fed into this function and their user ID is equal to the person who's playing its user ID, then it makes the current user that record and then gives them the clicks. I'm sorry if that doesn't make sense, but that's the best way I can explain it. But now we're going to make it so what if there isn't a person, or the person that's playing right now isn't in the table? We're going to want to add them. So if iterate equals records dot length minus 1. So basically what this is saying, if at the end of the for loop, if there's no one there, then do this if statement. Or if it doesn't match, then do this. So current user dot ID equals records iterate dot ID. And we're going to need the ID to update the record, or to create the record, sorry. So we're going to need to grab create record. I'm doing this in a weird order, I know, but I don't prepare for this stuff. All right, so we're going to put that in there. All right. And we're going to put in user data table. And make sure it's in quotations or else it will scream at you. And you don't want to get screamed at by code.org. All right. So we're going to want to feed the current user up here. And then you can get rid of this. We're not going to use this. And then if you want, I like to do this. I'm just going to do console log user created. All right. So at the end of the for loop, if the user ID does not match, or if the user ID is not in the table, then it's going to create an instance of the current user. And it's going to give the ID to the object here. And then it's going to say user created. All right. So that's got that done. Now next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to make it so when we click this save button here, we want to, well, save the user's data. So we're going to go down here, button save, and make sure you have a button that you can actually click. And then we're going to update the record. But first, we're going to do current user dot clicks equals clicks. Whoops, I spelled clicks wrong. Now, we're going to go over here to update record. Man, this is so weird. Okay. Then we do a user data table. And then for the ID, and it needs the ID. It is incredibly necessary that it has the ID. So we're going to do current user dot ID, and that's all we need to do. So it just goes to this object, and if it finds an ID, then it gets the ID. And the reason why we need the ID is so we can get the rest of the row. So we can get the user data and all that jazz. So we're going to get clicks. So we don't have to do current user dot clicks because it already knows that we're talking about current user because of this. And then we give it user ID. I hate that you have to feed it user ID every single time, but you have to live with it. So that's done. So basically it just updates the object. And that should be it. Let's do a console log to show that, we actually did it. So let's say new clicks or plus record dot user ID plus that plus record dot clicks. All right. And then the reason why it's complaining is because we don't use success. And if you want to use success, it basically, if it succeeds, if it's able to update it, then that is true. But we don't use that. We don't need to. So I believe that is it. Actually, no, it's not. No, it is not. I made an oopsie. Up here, we're going to do if records dot length does not equal 0, then we're going to do this for loop. So basically, if there's records in this table here, then we do the for loop, because for loops do not actually like trigger if the length, well, of course, it's records.length here. So if there's no records, then it just doesn't go off. All right. So then else, then we're just going to copy create record. But instead of iterate, because of course we're not in the for loop, so we can't use I, we're just going to do 0. So this will get the first record and its ID. And we don't have to worry about weird stuff or bugs from this, because this only triggers if there is 0 records or 1 record in the table. So with this said, it should work now. So if we go over, let's just look at the table. We're going to hit run. And right when it runs, it gets an ID. And then we're going to click. Okay, I seem to find the issue after like 5 minutes. So the issue is that you need a record here. I was dumb and stupid and dumb. So just put the record here and then put equals record.id. And also another thing I found out was to put return here, because the function needs to end if the user is found. But those are the only 2 issues, and now everything works. So here, I'm going to delete my record, my ID here. So when I hit run, it's going to say user created. And let's go over here to the table. Actually, I want to see this. So we're going to click here. And it's a little different because I'm using a different program, but it's the same idea. And if you hit save here, and the clicks are updated. And if I hit reset and then run, it shows the clicks there. So yep, that's how you save data. You can do this for all sorts of things. You can add more columns, more stuff, but the very crucial thing is the user ID. That's all you need. and you can make some really cool stuff. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. Have fun, and have a nice day. See ya.